What's good, everybody? It's 1400 Nunu reporting to you again with another update. So, we have been informed by the internet that Carmelo Anthony is about to be ready to go set trial. If none of Carmelo Anthony, on April 2nd, 2025, uh, went to a track meet at Memorial High School. And that is when a tragic incident happened where I guess Carmelo was asked to leave the tent that was at the track meet. Because when you're at if you ever done like run track and stuff in school, you know that everyone has their own tent and their own station set up to where for different schools and stuff. And everybody done went to someone else's camp to try to holler at some girls or you know talk to other people you might know from other schools, so on and so forth. But on April 22nd, 2005, Austin Metcalf, a 17-year-old American student at Memorial High School, was fatally stabbed by Carmelo Anthony, a Centennial High School student of the same age. So they're both 17 years old while attending a track meet in Frisco, Texas. Later on, Austin would die of his injuries, and allegedly, I think actually he died in his brother's hands. This all happened at the track meet. Basically, what happened was Carmelo Anthony went over to the tent where Austin Metcalf was with his twin brother and a bunch of other students, and essentially they asked him to leave. Anthony didn't want to leave, and so that's when the whole interaction happened between them, where um Carmelo basically said, "Touch me and see what happens." And so Austin Metcalf went and grabbed him, and I guess threw him up to the bleachers. And then that's when he responded, "Punch me and see what happens." Austin then goes and punches him. Carmelo goes in his bag, reaches in his backpack, pulls out a black handled knife, stabs Austin Metcalf once in the chest, and runs away from the scene. Austin would essentially die in his twin brother's hands, and Anthony would be picked up really like what I think 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, you know. And when police first made interaction with Anthony, he basically told them straight up, look, it was in self-defense. So he admitted off the bat that you know he did this, but he's saying it's in self-defense, which we're gonna touch on in a second. But the police would then go on to say that he was crying hysterically and he was just out of control. Obviously he was scared because he just stabbed somebody, right? But nonetheless, he claimed self-defense. And of course, we all know and seen on the internet about the bail reduction and then him being out on bail and the family riding in new cars and getting new houses and all these things while the family of Austin Metcalf has to deal with the tragic of losing their son at such a young age, at only 17 years old, who was actually about to be on his way to be playing football, from what I heard, or whatever. So, he had a promising future. And of course, again, like I said in my last video, with the Andy Chow and Rick Chow, Cyrus Carmack Belton situation, this is all going to be a big race thing. This is actually going to be a bigger racial thing than the Rick Chow situation. Because since it happened last year, it's been complete chaos online. Everybody wants to see Carmelo Anthony in jail, which I think, based off of what we know, should happen. Because we're going to touch on this self defense thing. And since that is what Carmelo Anthony is claiming, it's only right to see if what he says actually is a self defense, right? Is he justified? Does he have justification to have taken a knife from his backpack, stabbing Austin Metcalf in the chest, killing him? Was there a threat on his life to where he needed to use a knife? Well, we're going to see what the law says right now. In Texas, you are legally allowed to use force, including deadly force, to protect yourself, others, or your property when you reasonably believe it is immediately necessary, and you are not required to retreat if you are lawfully present. the legal basis for self-defense under Texas Penal Code 931, a person may use force against another when they reasonably believe it is immediately necessary to protect themselves from unlawful force. Keep in mind, unlawful force. This belief is presumed reasonable if the person is not engaged in criminal activity at the time, except for minor traffic violations and so on and so forth, right? But what does it say at the bottom right there? It says the law emphasizes that the force used must be proportional to the threat. So that means, for example, if you get in an argument with somebody and they take a gun out to threaten your life, you could pull out a gun and legally do what you need to do to protect yourself. That would stand as justification. If you get into an argument with somebody and they punch you in the face and you punch them back, that's self defense. But if you get in a fight and you get punched or pushed or anything like that, and then you pull out a knife and kill somebody, that is not equal force. So therefore, just based off of that loose definition, because I'm sure when it comes to the trial, they're gonna do all these little technical things, and maybe there might be more information that'll come out showing maybe more likely there is self-defense. I don't know. We're gonna see, but just based off of this very um at face value, broad, general understanding, it must be met with equal force. Otherwise, it's excessive force that you are using, and it could invalidate self-defense. Already from what Anthony says is that he put his hands on him, he touched him. Okay, but he didn't use bodily harm. He didn't use anything that would have warrant that you felt like your life was in danger to stab him in the chest. So I don't know how this is gonna go, but it's not looking good in my opinion because at the end of the day, these are two 17-year-old boys. They're supposed to be, you know, promising athletes, but race is gonna play a big part in this because you have a white kid that died who was again supposed to be a promising athlete with a promising future against this black kid who, first of all, wasn't supposed to be at these stands in the first place, right? This is the number one thing that people are saying online. Oh, why was he there on the stands? Da 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 da. Nigga, my nigga, everybody does that shit. Excuse my French, but everybody done did that during track meets and all that stuff. Even during like regular sports teams, bro. People go to other people's schools and hang out and do all that, bro. So it's like that's not really the issue. The issue is what transpired afterwards. Anthony should have took his black ass back to his ends, and this would have never happened, you know. Or if he was really just trying to be a tough ass nigga, he should have put his hands back on dude, and it would have been it. But instead, you pulled a knife, bro. I don't know what this guy's lawyers are gonna do. Obviously, he has good lawyers because first of all, they done raised a lot of money for this trial, bro. They done raised a lot of money. Like I said earlier, the parents been buying new cribs, new whips, probably some new diamonds. Who know what they've been doing, bro? They've been eating, you know. Carmelo's been out chilling, relaxing. He's at house arrest in his mansion, probably on 2K. Probably eating chips and dip, probably smoking some weed. Who knows what he's doing? But this situation is very serious, and I don't know if he's gonna get this. But like I said, this is gonna come down to how you can portray the situation and how what the witnesses say. Even though we've seen in the Rick Chow case that the witnesses didn't play a good part, but that was only because they didn't actually see what transpired at the last moments where Cyrus Carmack Belton was fatally unalived. But in this case, there's a lot of witnesses. You have a lot of people that were there at this track meet, a lot of students. So I can imagine that they're gonna have tons of testimonies and cross examinations and so on and so forth. But in my opinion, this is all gonna come down to this black and white thing, and that's gonna play a favor in Carmelo Anthony's hand because of course we all know how it goes right now online, especially in America, right? All black people are unjust, they're being treated unjust, so on and so forth, which is true, right? So that part's gonna play a big part in his defense, obviously. But Will it be enough to obtain a W for self-defense? I think not. I think not. Austin doesn't have any priors. He's not, from what I know, you know, he doesn't have any priors. He's not a criminal. He's not someone that just goes out. The only thing that I heard though was that there's a couple things online of him and his brother basically parroting a bunch of racial slurs and things online, which I won't show on the screen here, but yeah, that still doesn't warrant self-defense. So people bringing this up is pretty irrelevant, you know? Yeah, he probably is a racist piece of shit kid, but that doesn't mean he deserved to die in this situation. That doesn't mean that this should be used against him simply because he had some online views, which probably wasn't even his views. Like I said, I don't know the context behind it, but you know these kids online like to joke and throw around the N word and throw around these racial slurs and all these type of things. So it's nothing new. So it's like I don't see how that would play a big part in the case. It could though, because like I said, it's gonna be racially motivated, and you know it could call into question maybe like okay, maybe they were targeting him specifically because he was black and they didn't want him over there, you know. And it could have been, and like I said, there could be more information that we just simply don't know yet about exactly what happened, right? Because we only get a little bit of everything. But once this trial goes, that's when everything's gonna come to light. At least everything that they know. But you let me know what you guys think. Do you think Carmelo Anthony will walk on self-defense, or is he able to spend the rest of his life in prison? And what do you want? Do you want him to walk, or do you want him to spend the life of his rest? Do you want him to spend the rest of his life in prison? You know, let me know in the comments below. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. I'm out.